Destroy Lonely just released his, I guess, debut album, but I guess you could also say No Stylist was kind of his debut album as well. But his debut album, If Looks Could Kill, this one was pretty interesting. I'm not the biggest fan of this one. This is an album that's about 85 minutes long and is 26 songs, and I feel like anything of that length, there has to be a couple things you can cut. And this album, there are a lot of things you can cut. I feel like Lone just doesn't really sound that good over the whole thing. Kind of like my same complaints with No Stylist go on here as well, where Lone kind of sounds boring over a lot of these songs. And just overall, he doesn't really, I don't know, feel like himself, that same kind of energy he brings to like a lot of the shows and the other stuff he does. I feel like there's not that same energy over this whole album, and I feel like there aren't really that many good songs on here. If Looks Could Kill, the title track, is pretty solid, and there are some really good beats on here. There's actually, in my opinion, a lot of them, but I just think this whole thing isn't really Lone's, best, and I feel like there's just so many songs on here that don't sound good. Money and Sex, the one with Ken Carson, the bonus track, in my opinion, is gotta be the best song on this entire thing. They come in with so much energy, and the beat on that is insane. Some of the beats on these other songs and just the production on this thing is pretty solid. You have like these kind of good dark guitar trap beats with like If Looks Could Kill and How You Feel, and a lot of the stuff on the front side of the album. But as the album goes on, it doesn't really have that same dark guitar trap sound, and goes into some more stuff, which I feel like actually sounds a lot better. The kind of, I feel like this 4 to 10 spot, 4 to 11 spot just doesn't really sound good to me. And I feel like none of those songs, are that great. And I just think this whole album is way too bloated. And, 80 minutes of music is just a little bit too much to have 26 good songs on. So it's like, you have to cut something. And I just think overall this album could have had so many cuts, and it would have made it so much better. But let's just go track by track, starting off with How You Feel. I really like the guitar sample on this. The mixing on Lone's voice is a little weird, but I feel like the production on this song really works, and the mixing on his voice where it comes in and out sounds great. I think the production is really similar to the title track, but it still sounds good. The song does drag on a little bit. A 4-minute song is a little excessive, and then we go on to Look If Looks Could Kill. This song is really solid. I feel like it has its own kind of sound of this dark guitar trap, but it's pretty dark and catchy song with some solid production. Fly Shit, I like the sample of the hard guitar, but I feel like that Lone's flow and delivery gets choppy at times, and the production doesn't sound amazing. The song also just drags on with Lone sounding pretty bored over in the entire song. Which one? I don't really like Lone's vocals, and the beat sounds kind of boring. He just sounds terrible over the song with his vocals. These don't really work with the sound of the song. The guitar loop doesn't sound good either, and I don't really like it that much. This one also just takes a long time to end, and I feel like it shouldn't, because it's like a 3-minute 20-second song. I don't know, it just doesn't feel that short. Raver, the production on this one sounds really similar to No Stylist. I feel like I don't like the sample they use, as when they go to the chilled out production, it sounds so much better. Lone's flow also just kind of sucks. Then we go to Come With It. The production on the song is really interesting, with some random sound effects in the beginning, and how the sound of the beat is kind of just random during the majority of the song. It kind of does work though. I feel like Lone sounds pretty solid on this song, so it's, fine. By the Pound, the production is really interesting, and I feel like it works, but Lone just sounds pretty bored and boring over it. The song also just stays around for too long and doesn't work that well. Lone just sounds so bored over the entire song. All the time, the production is really interesting with the bubble effects and the random drum effects. I feel like Lone just sounds really bored over this track as well. His flow is just so boring, and he doesn't just feel excited. Biggest problem, another song where he sounds really bored, and I feel like the production on this side is just boring. He sounds so bored over this track, and the ad-libs are okay, but the flow of Lone is boring on this track. Chris Paul, the production is interesting with the beeping sound, but I feel like there's another song where it's just not that interesting. Lone's flow is boring again, and he doesn't sound interested. I don't like the sound of the song, and there's not really that good of a rhythm to it. Superstar Lone again sounds bored, doesn't bring any energy over an okay beat. The song is just so generic in this kind of underground scene. The fact that Lone brings no energy to it ruins it. New, I don't really like the way Lone is mixed in. The production on this song just kind of sucks. Again, a really boring song. Right Now, I like the guitar production on this, and it sounds really good. But again, Lone sounds pretty bored and doesn't fit that well with the song. which way. The production on the song is extremely generic. Lone actually sounds a lot better with this, with the energy and flow, but the beat sucks. I like Lone's vocals later on, but again, the beat is pretty boring. Wagwan, the switch in production from the song before this to it works well, and the production is kind of interesting. It's nothing amazing. Moment of Silence, I kind of like the switch in sound in this song. It's a whole switch into a lot more quiet and melodic sound, and I really like Lone's flow on this song, and the production on this song works well. This song sounds great and works well for the majority of the 4-minute runtime. Brazy Girls actually like the production, and Lone sounds solid. I feel like it's nothing special, but it works well. Going Up, the beat is okay, and Lone sounds bored again. I feel like the song works fine in the sound of the song, or like the sound of the album, but it just sounds so boring again to me, and this whole album does. Passenger, another song where I feel like Lone sounds extremely bored and doesn't bring any energy. The production is interesting though and works. Promo, another song where Lone sounds extremely bored. The beat is kind of interesting but nothing special, and Lone just doesn't bring that same energy. The song just takes boring to a whole new level. It doesn't work at all, and Lowe's flow is even more boring. Worth It, again, another extremely boring song where the beat is boring, but then it does kind of speed up. The 808s sound kind of good, but Lone, kind of kills with the flow. But I think the production at the end does sound actually really good, and it really picks up the beat over this whole thing. Red Light, I just hate Lone's voice on this. It's an okay song overall, it just doesn't do that much for me. Make Some Work, the song is extremely boring. I just don't think it sounds good. It's boring, especially Lone's flow, and he just doesn't sound into it. Safety Interlude, I like the calming sound of the guitar. This is a really cool song. It really soothes the listener, and Lone's flow works a lot better over it. The song is much chiller and works well. Your Eyes, the production on this song sounds pretty good, and Lone's voice sounds solid, making it a pretty solid song. The production and Lone's voice just sound good, and I just like where they're going with this one. Money and Sex, really like the production. Definitely the best song in the entire album. The stops at the beginning are really weird and caught me off guard, but it works so well, and it makes the song unique. I just think overall they bring a lot of energy to a 4-minute 30-second song, and the switch between them and basically all their chemistry sounds really good. The production is crazy, and overall it's got to be the best song on the entire album, and it's got to be just the best song on this entire thing. Like, I don't know, this entire album is just, I feel like, really boring a lot of the time, and I don't think Lone brings that energy that he should. Ken Carson, he comes in on one song and brings energy, and I feel like he brings more energy on that one song than Lone does in probably half this album. Like, I don't know, there's just something going on here, and while there are some really solid songs, I do like Moment of Silence, and, I like the first 2 tracks on this. I just feel like Lone could have done so much better, and just the way he went on this song, or on this entire album, I don't know, it just didn't really work, and even though there wasn't that much of a switch in sound, just he didn't bring the energy I wanted to hear on this, and I don't know, maybe just the beats and everything, it just got so repetitive. Either way though, 4 out of 10 maybe,